Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to call the Environmental Service Committee meeting to progress at 1:01 on Wednesday, April 20th. Can we have a confirmation of the agenda? Walter and Steve, any pecuniary interest? I'm seeing none. The item 4, Environmental Service Committee minutes of January 19th, 2022. Is there any confirmation of that? Is there a mover and seconder for that? Dean and Doug, any questions on the minutes? I see none. All those in favor? That's carried. We're down to item 5.1, business, Mitchell Drinking Water, January to March 2022, first quarter report. Kevin?
Good afternoon. The first quarter drinking water report for 2022. As you can see, we have no non-compliance on the water for the first quarter. No summary of inorganics or organics. They were not tested this quarter. Our quarterly results are there. As you can see, our THMs and HAAs are well within the legal limit. So are the nitrate levels at the distribution centers. Quality assurance, again, all micro samples and chemical samples are sent to an accredited lab for testing. Some scheduled maintenance and operations for the first quarter of 2022. Cleaned and inspected the chemical injectors, switched pump duties at all the sites, cleaned and inspected the angle control valve screens. The quarterly THMs, HAAs, nitrate samples were taken. The distribution dead ends were flushed, in the distribution system. The analyzers were cleaned. The automatic blow off was inspected. Exercised the PRV at D4. Annual inspections of D123 and D4 PRV. The first session alkalinity samples were taken from the distribution system. Nickel Water Services verified the water quality instruments. Lift Safe Engineering inspected all of the safety equipment and lifting devices. Summers Generator was on site for the annual service and inspection of the backup generators. And the silica pumps at D123 and D4 were rebuilt. Some unscheduled operations and maintenance. For the maintenance, Bram Electric and SCADA contractor were on site at D123 to install a new pressure transducer. D123 was isolated from the distribution system until sample results were received. The SCADA contractor updated the reservoir level alarms at D123. That was after the new transducer. And Bram Electric replaced an exhaust fan at D123. Main breaks, we had 4 main breaks in the first quarter of 2022. We had a Category 1 main break on Georgina Street between Wellington and St. David. We had a Category 1 main break on Arthur Street at the Duncan intersection. We had a Category 1 main break on St. George Street between Montreal Street and Trafalgar Street. And we had a Category 1 main break on Blanchard Street at Huron Road. Calibration summary. As you can see, all of our instruments were calibrated every month. Some were verified weekly. Environmental/operating problems. This was in relation to the pressure transducer. The reservoir level at D123 was acting erratically. The electronics system was troubleshot. When the pumps were running, the electronics would fluctuate. And when the pumps were not running, the level was found to be reading accurate. Bram Electric was contacted and determined that there may be excessive noise coming from high lift 2, which would interfere with the reading. Bram Electric adjusted the electronics unit. It seemed to be reading correctly. the decision was made to install a pressure transducer to prevent any further interference issues in the future. Consumer drinking water complaints. On January 5th, we had a resident on Montreal Street contact Environmental Services stating only one tap can run at a time while the water pressure decreases. Staff were informed that the water softener and all the lines in the house have been replaced. A line snap was recommended, and staff have not been contacted about performing a line snap. January 17th, a resident on Waterloo Street contacted Environmental Services stating that stating that they have low water pressure. The resident said there was no water softener or iron filter in the house. Staff recommended a line snap, and again, staff were not contacted about performing one. On February 24th, a resident on St. George Street contacted staff stating that discolored water was coming from both the hot water tank and main service line. Internal plumbing work was completed prior to the complaint, including the curb stop being shut off. Staff informed the resident that the work could have stirred up some sediment and recommended to continue flushing the line until clear. On March 14th, a resident on Henry Street contacted Town Hall regarding rusty water. Environmental Services contacted the resident who said that the water was no longer discolored. Staff informed the resident to call back if the water became discolored again. On March 14th again, a resident on Willow Lane contacted staff regarding yellow water. The resident stated that it has been like that since they moved in March of 2020 and that flushing the line does nothing. Staff informed the resident that Willow Lane is a dead end and is more likely to accumulate sediment. Dead ends are flushed quarterly to prevent that from happening. A line snap was recommended. Staff have not been contacted about performing a line snap. And on March 14th again, a resident on Sunset Drive contacted Environmental Services regarding rusty water. The resident informed staff that their house was built in 2018 and they have called in 2020 and 2021. They stated that the issue has not been resolved. Staff had previously recommended the resident install an iron filter. Currently, there is no iron filter installed. Staff recommended a line snap be performed prior to the installation of an iron filter, and the resident has not contacted staff about performing a line snap. Review of infrastructure is the same. Valves, exercise, and grease at the standpipe, water tower, wells, and the distribution centers. The high lift and well pumps were inspected. The generators were inspected and ran for monthly testing. The well depths and turbidity were taken. Everything's normal there. The Win 911 alarm system was tested, and the reservoir hatches and screens were inspected. And there were no missed time during this quarter. Any questions?
Go ahead, Doug.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
All these people with water, I have air in my water line. Like every week it blows off. Is that something that's normal too? Like you'll turn the tap on, it'll go, the air will blow out, and then, no, Rich is shaking his head no. I thought maybe it was because of the subdivision beside me. No?
I can't see how that would happen from there, but I don't have much experience with air in the lines.
I have a witness. She complains all the time it happens, but so I just
bet.
wondered if it was normal thing or something, but it somehow air gets in it and blows off somewhere. So
No, because that usually happens when the water's been turned off, if I'm not mistaken. Then when you turn it back on, the air has to be released. I can't see how that would be happening.
On a fairly regular basis. I'll ask my neighbors.
Walter, do you have a question?
Yeah, we seem to be having, I think, a few more complaints in this report or this time around than other times. And is there any particular reason that we're having that? And I have another question. I'll ask it right now, and you can answer both at the same time. We always do the line snaps, do we? For some reason or other, I was thinking that you had to get a plumber to do the line snap, but we do that, eh?
To answer your second question, yes, a plumber cannot legally touch our property. Staff have to be there to perform the line snap. I'm not saying that someone hasn't done it, but they shouldn't be touching our property. To answer your first question, I don't know if Richard wants to take it, but we have a lot of iron in our groundwater, and over time it builds up in people's lines, and there could be numerous things that could cause it to dislodge and cause discolored water. It's also hard to determine because if I remember correctly, usually like the staining in your bathtubs and stuff, there's not much we can do about that. That's strictly due to the groundwater. That's why you install an iron filter in your house to prevent that from happening. But if Richard has any further.
Yeah, so I'm going to suggest that some of it's social media. It's helping educate people to, a lot of people just flush their lines and not actually mention it. But there's been a few social media posts that have indicated that, hey, if you call town hall, they'll give you directions. So, I think in this case, there's, it's the benefit of social media. And we're actually hearing more about people that have got iron issues. It used to be that, West Perth Power, when they were doing the water, would go around on a complaint by complaint basis and actually do the line snap for people. But there's a liability issue there for us. So we make sure that the residents have a plumber come in and do their side. And when Kevin talks about our property, he's talking about the curb stop out of the front yard. We prefer that nobody but municipal staff operate that. So does that answer your question?
No, I just I find it, I guess, a little odd, Rich, that when you're suggesting that they should have a line snap, it doesn't look like anybody's ever followed up to do one. Like, it seems odd when you're saying, yeah, you should get a line snap, that they wouldn't say, okay, come and do it,
Yeah, but I think they balk at the, it costs them $100 for a plumber, because the plumber's going to charge them an hour, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they're not real high priority jobs for most plumbers, so they'll kind of put it off. So some we hear from, others we don't. The plumbers will call us and let us know that, come find this curb stop for us, and we'll correlate that to the complaint, and we'll go and do it. And then it's very seldom that after a curb stop or after a snap's done that we'll actually hear from the resident again, because they see what comes out of the line and they see that it runs clear, and they're usually very, very pleased with the results.
Good. Thank you.
And does Doug have do you have that thing on your hot water heater, the mixing valve on your hot water heater?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. You might want to have somebody take a look.
Like a plumber?
Like a
I know a
plumber.
guy. I know
I'm
a
sure
guy.
you do.
Any other questions? Can I get a mover and seconder for the first quarter drinking water report? Dean and Steve, all those in favor? That's carried. On to 5.2, 2022 first quarter wastewater report. It's Kevin.
So the 2022 first quarter wastewater report, we did have a non-compliance with our ECA in this quarter. I'll explain that more later, but it was an emergency bypass. The duration was 119.5 hours, and the problem was corrected. The problem was corrected and repaired. Again, I'll explain that further on. Reporting requirements, we had no other requirements reported to Spills Action Center from our ECA. Under operations, as you can see, our parameters are relatively normal. February and March flow is higher due to the rain and the snow melt. All the other parameters are similar to what they usually are, not much there. Same with the average effluent concentration. If you look at it, you can see that the total suspended solid has crept up. All the other values are what they are, well within our limit. Our solids are still within our limit and objective, but they are creeping up on us. So we're trying to resolve that issue. The average effluent loading, again, normal, as you can see, well within our limits, but again, the solids are a little bit higher than they have been in the past. Utility ratings, we're still waiting on the hydrometer to be hooked up with our skater contractor. He's been a little busy. I'm not sure what happened to the report when it got transferred, but as you can see, the alum usage is somewhat normal. It's all relatively the same. Obviously, in the month of March in 2022, it's gone up a little bit. But if you look, our phosphorus levels have also come way down. So we could probably play around with that, use a little less. There was no sludge hauled during the first quarter. Scheduled operations and maintenance. Cleaned and inspected the UV system, monthly and quarterly sludge samples taken. The grit vortex was inspected, flushed out the auto sampler lines. The blower filters were inspected and changed as needed. Bar screens inspected and level transducers at the pump stations. Inspected clarifier motor and gearbox. Inspected return pumps and sludge pumps. Exercised valves at the wastewater treatment plant, James Street pumping station, and Herbert Street pumping station. Cleaned and inspected the airlifts. Cleaned industrial filters for the blowers. Flushed the alum lines and board. Lift Safe Engineering inspected safety equipment and lifting devices. Summers generator was on site for annual service and inspection of the backup generators. GG compressed air was on site at the wastewater treatment plant to install new compressor for the sand filters. Bram Electric installed new lights at the wastewater treatment plant. The RAS pumps were inspected. Replaced all the bulbs, sleeves, springs, and O-rings for UV Bank 1A. P-Tech Solutions on site to inspect and test gas detection systems. The SCADA contractor updated programming on blower 2. And Bram Electric installed a new control panel for the compressors at the wastewater treatment plant. And Bram Electric ran wire for the new pressure transducers to be installed at the James Street sewage pumping station. Sorry, unscheduled operations and maintenance. The battery backup at the wastewater treatment plant failed. It was replaced with a spare UPS and a new one was ordered. OGI was on site at the wastewater treatment plant to pump down aeration cell 1 for emergency repairs. Repaired aeration cell 1, air diffusers, and replaced 5 headers in the cell. Safety, there were no lost time due to injury in this quarter. Operators continue to work on their monthly safety training and implement safety policies and procedures. Environmental/operating problems. The new SCADA computer was in the process of being installed. The old SCADA computer at the wastewater treatment plant crashed and was unable to restart. The SCADA contractor finished installing the new SCADA computer so that when 911 calls out when an alarm is present. A hole wore through the stand on filter return pump 1, causing the basement to flood. A new filter return pump was installed to replace filter return pump 2, which was previously failed and was plumbed in temporarily until another pump could be ordered and installed. We had a control building power failure. Our RAS pumps and filter return pumps were not running. The PLC and control building had power. Input on PLC was lit. Bram Electric was on site to determine the issue. The SCADA contractor was also contacted to help resolve the issue. The input on the PLC was burnt out. Rewired power failure input to spare input on the PLC. Updated programming and plant returned to normal operation. The alarms in 1911 descriptions were incorrect, and the Herbert Street PLC would not reset. The SCADA contractor was on site, updated the alarm descriptions in Win911, and discovered that the Herbert Street reset was not tied into the reset button on the SCADA. It was tied in. Those were due to the new SCADA computer. The filter compressor fuses blew. It was concluded that the compressors pull a lot of amperage. 20 amp fuses were replaced with 30 amp fuses, which required upgrading in the wire size. The blower 2 PLC froze. Staff were unable to run blower 2 for a little bit. The issue was resolved and the blower was returned to normal operation. And then a geyser had formed in aeration cell 1. Part of the PVC pipe that supplies air to the cell broke. The aeration cell had to be drained to repair the pipe, resulting in a temporary reduction in capacity of a treatment process, which in accordance with our ECA constitutes an emergency bypass. Spills Action Center and the Huron Perth Health Unit were notified of the emergency bypass. Daily samples were collected as per our ECA. The PVC pipe was repaired and the aeration cell was returned to normal operation. Spills Action Center and Huron Perth Health Unit were notified of the end of the bypass. Wastewater complaints. We had no wastewater complaints during this quarter. Review of infrastructure. Pumps at Herbert Street and James Street were inspected. Blowers were inspected. Tested the alarm system. Clarifiers and drives were inspected. Inspected the grit vortex, belt, drive, and greased the gear. Upcoming events. Digesters will be emptied and inspected. Sludge will be hauled from the sludge storage cell, I'm hoping. And the aeration cell 1 will be drained, cleaned, inspected, and the ladder will be replaced. That is all. Any questions?
Any questions for Kevin on that report? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder then for the wastewater first quarter report? Deputy Mayor Ike and Mayor McKenzie, all in favor? That's carried. We have Richard to do 5.3.
Yep. Environmental Services Committee report for Q1 2022. Drinking water operations. Fire department's communications equipment has been provided with a dedicated electrical circuit within the standpipe building. There was an issue with it was losing power. Don't believe it was us. I believe it was a piece of equipment that they had installed, but they've since replaced it, and it seems to be running fine now. Pending approval of the ICIP Phase 2 grant application, the project will most likely extend into 2023 due to ongoing supply issues everywhere. Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks Drinking Water Systems 2021 focused inspection was conducted in January of 2022. The system was found to be in compliance with the items that were subject to the inspection. The final inspection rating was 100%. The biannual drinking water system survey issued by Statistics Canada has been completed for the Mitchell drinking water system. Infrastructure inspections planned for 2022 include the inspection and cleaning of the reservoirs at 132 George Street and an ROV inspection of the water tower at 125 Clark Street. Wastewater operations, first quarter 2022 submissions to the Effluent Regulatory Reporting Information System for Environment Canada have been completed. Environmental Services continues to conduct surveillance monitoring of waste streams from large industrial users. The sewage plant continues to see excessive loading from one of the large wet industries. Reporting requirements for industries with sewage use agreements are only being met by one of the two applicable industries. While one maintains the status quo, the other has stopped providing the required supporting data and has also taken it upon themselves to modify and implement a fiscal calculation without approval of the municipality. A comprehensive review of the Mitchell Sewers and Drains bylaw is overdue. The current bylaw is 20 years old. Environmental Services will conduct the review over this year. Landfill operations. Monthly and weekly inspections on landfill sites have been completed up to the final week of April 15th, 2022. Household hazardous waste materials depot. The depot was last serviced on February 4th, 2022. I submitted another request for servicing last week. Reporting requirements for the Product Care Association have been completed up to the February service date for household hazardous waste products. E-waste, the municipality's e-waste service provider is again refining its collection model. They're actively reducing their sorting capacity and will no longer be accepting old cathode ray televisions. Staff is working on locating a disposal recycling partner for the CRT2 televisions. And this may involve ending our agreement with our current service provider. 30 days notice is all that is required to terminate the agreement. Automotive materials have been picked up by our regular service providers. This includes automotive plastic containers and used oil and antifreeze products. Staff are investigating a recycling option for mattresses and box springs. The options reviewed will require an increase in the per item fee at the landfill in addition to dry storage requirements. Storage would most likely be a van box trailer from a tractor trailer. Diversion of the mattresses and box springs would add years to the landfill's longevity. Environmental services. COVID protocols are still being followed by the environmental services staff. The cloud-based water meter reading software suite has been rolled out. Multiple staff members have received training, and a new reading device has also been purchased, which is a cell phone. Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks has issued a proposal which would allow the issuance of administrative penalties for environmental contraventions. Staff have reviewed the proposal's content and are assessing its potential impact on our operations. DWQMS, the annual NSF external surveillance audit was conducted on February 17th, 2022. Staff are very pleased to report a successful audit outcome. They didn't even issue an opportunity for improvement. The Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks has added cybersecurity threats to the DWQMS risk assessment. So these is something that we've already added that, have we not? We've already added that to ours, and we've been reviewing this information for well over a year. Are there any questions in regards to my report?
No questions for Richard? Okay, I guess we need a mover and seconder to accept his environmental service report. Somebody, Dean and Steve, all those in favor? That's carried. Item 6, new business. Nothing. Nothing. Item 7, then I guess next meeting is July 20th, 2022.
No,
No. Okay.
it is, but yeah. Okay, fine.
That doesn't work for you?
It's my birthday. I don't want to do a meeting on my birthday.
Oh, bring cake.
Yeah, I guess it'll be in person, so I'm bringing cake.
Just bring cupcakes.
Cupcake. And some pizza for you?
Sour cream and onion chips.
Sour cream. Okay.
All right. So nothing else. Then item 8 is the adjournment. A motion to adjourn at 1:30.
Well, that gets you out in time, doesn't it?
Someone want to second that? Doug,
I
all
can't
in
move it.
favor?
I was thumbs upping it. I can't move it. You have to get Walter as your mover and Doug was your seconder.
No, actually it was Steve moved it.
Okay, good. Perfect.
Okay. I guess
Well,
we're
have an awesome
adjourned.
day.
Okay,